All right, high school students in the East County will be returning to campus next week for in-person learning. The precautions that will be put in place.
Plus, why the family of a Navy medic shot and killed on a Southern California base is now claiming a possible cover-up.
And President Trump booed at the Supreme Court as he pays his respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
ABC 10 News starts now with breaking news.
But we do want to begin first with this breaking news. These are live pictures right now from our 10 News breaking news tracker. This is a plane that has gone down in Kearny Mesa, the area near Kearnyville Road and Balboa Avenue. Again, this is live pictures right now. You can see that crunch plane from our 10 News breaking news tracker. We have unconfirmed reports that 2 people were on board this plane at the time. Again, we are checking on their conditions. You can see that yellow tape is up right now, so there are already people that have arrived there and are checking on the situation. We do not know the situation if there were 2 people on board. We do have a crew headed that way. Sky 10 is also about to be overhead as well, but you can see fire crews that are there. When we have more updates on this story, we will bring them to you.
Now to our top story of the day. The nation is preparing for another night of unrest after learning none of the 3 officers involved in Breonna Taylor's death would be charged with her killing. Good evening, I'm Lindsay Pena.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Last night, 2 officers in Louisville were shot during demonstrations. Those demonstrations are expected to continue tonight across the U.S. and here in San Diego. As ABC's Rena Roy explains, officials are pleading for calm while activists vow to fight on.
Federal charges in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor are still a possibility. A spokesperson for the FBI telling ABC News the Bureau is still investigating all aspects of the case, even after a Kentucky grand jury's decision not to charge any officers in her death. Former officer Brett Hankison was charged with 3 counts of first-degree wanton endangerment, not for firing the shots that killed Breonna, but for recklessly shooting into a neighboring apartment. The Attorney General says the 2 other officers involved in the botched March 13th raid, Detective Miles Cosgrove, who shot 16 times, and Sergeant John Mattingly, who shot 6 times, were justified in firing their weapons because they were returning fire from Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker.
According to Kentucky law, the use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves.
The Attorney General also declined for now to release the grand jury report or reveal any details about the grand jury itself, raising questions about the racial makeup of the group. Taylor's family demanding transparency.
Did he present any evidence on behalf of Breonna Taylor? Because if he didn't, then he unilaterally put his finger on the scale of justice and made sure that these police officers were exonerated.
The grand jury's decision sparking angry protests, dozens of people arrested overnight.
Public safety and the work for racial equity and justice can and must coexist.
2 Louisville officers shot during the violence. Major Aubrey Gregory, treated for a gunshot wound to the hip, was released from the hospital. And Officer Robin Desroches underwent surgery after being shot in the abdomen. He's recovering.
Officials are, of course, hoping things are more peaceful tonight. Like last night, there will be a curfew beginning at 9 o'clock. The governor has also sent in 500 National Guard personnel. Rena Roy, ABC News, Louisville.
And you can follow any developments in the Breonna Taylor case by downloading our free mobile app. Just go to the App Store and search 10 News.
Now to the latest on the coronavirus in San Diego County. 171 new cases were reported today, bringing the total to 45,596. 20 of those cases were connected to the outbreak at SDSU. And there were 6 new deaths, bringing that total to 773. Some public high school students in San Diego County will officially return to in-person learning next week when classes resume in the Grossmont Union High School District. ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala spoke to the superintendent about that decision and the precautions put in place.
32% of parents surveyed in the Grossmont Union High School District wanted their students to remain in full-time distance learning from home, while 68% wanted their students to begin in-person blended learning. The district chose to move forward with both options. Starting next week, some students will be back on campus with limitations.
Students have to be divided into smaller groups.
The district superintendent, Teresa Kemper, says if parents chose to go with the blended learning model, their student is assigned to group A, B, C, or D, depending on factors like their course schedule, transportation needs, and how many students per household.
They each will come to school one day a week.
The groups determine which day the students will come to campus. The rest of the time, they'll be learning from home. Deep cleaning and disinfecting will happen on campus throughout the day, and the district created this roadmap for reopening with 5 levels.
We want to make sure that we're really confident with new routines that have been established. We want to make sure the county health conditions are continuing to improve.
They've been in level 1, which is strictly distance learning. Level 2 begins on Tuesday, September 29th. That allows students to learn from campus 1 day a week with 25% on campus at a time in class sizes of 8 to 12 students.
If everything looks good, after about 2 weeks, we could potentially announce going to the next level.
By level 5, students will be back on campus 5 days a week. For now, Kemper says they're taking a cautious approach and have plans in place if they do need to jump back a level.
Then if we change from 2 days a week to 1 day a week, we've already got the plan in place and it's easy to transition to that. I want parents and students to know we are so excited to see them and to have them back. There's no place like school.
Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
Kemper also says students enrolled in special education will attend in person 2 days a week. All students will be screened and temperatures will be checked before entering a classroom. And teachers and staff will be tested for COVID-19 regularly. Face masks are required for everyone on campus. Meantime, parents are expressing their frustration with the San Dieguito Union High School District. A large group gathered outside the Encinitas Community Center this afternoon and marched to the district offices. Last Thursday, the Board of Trustees voted to extend distance learning through the second half of the school year. But parents say it's time for schools to reopen for in-person learning. The board is holding a special meeting tonight to discuss how the district can reopen safely while following the public health orders. More than 200,000 Americans have died from COVID-19 just 8 months after the nation's first case. President Trump has repeatedly claimed a coronavirus vaccine would be ready by Election Day, but experts say that timeline is unlikely. The Washington Post reports that the FDA is set to release, quote, rigorous new rules for drug makers creating vaccines. This includes monitoring trial volunteers for 2 months after they receive their second dose. President Trump is accusing the FDA of playing politics with the vaccine.
That has to be approved by the White House. We may or may not approve it. That sounds like a political move.
Meantime, Brigham Young University has become the epicenter of an outbreak in Utah. It is now reporting over 1,000 cases since the fall semester began.
The family of a Navy medic who died on a Southern California base is now claiming a possible cover-up after learning a service member was charged in connection with his death. Our ABC 10 News investigative reporter Jennifer Kastner first broke this story of his death last year. The family says they were led to believe that his death was a suicide, but now other service members could be facing charges.
We're about to show you a new interview with the deceased corpsman's parents. They have details they have not yet publicly shared about what they say happened the night their son died on base. Jose De Leon and wife Sandra were overcome Thursday, reacting to this week's announcement by the Marines that a service member has been charged and others are being investigated in connection to the death of their son, 30-year-old Navy Corpsman Michael Vincent De Leon. He died last summer on the 29 Palms military base, a few hours northeast of San Diego.
Sandra and I are happy that we can't even be happy, Jen. I mean, it's incredible. I mean,
sometimes I just listen to recordings just to hear his voice.
A Marine spokesperson confirmed Wednesday that one person has been charged with dereliction of duty resulting in death. A hearing has not been set. The parents first contacted ABC 10 News for help after claiming the military stonewalled them from getting answers about their son's death. ABC 10 News then learned from a source with close military ties that Naval Criminal Investigative Service, or NCIS, confirmed the shooting death was being investigated as a homicide, not a suicide, like his parents said they were led to believe.
The phone call from that residence using my son's phone was that it was a suicide.
De Leon said Thursday prosecutors told him the service member charged is a Navy corpsman, a type of medic, who was at a house party on base with his son and other corpsmen. He said prosecutors also told him that some of those corpsmen are likely facing upcoming charges.
We know that the firearm was dry fired at Michael. The firearm was put away, and then it came out again. And according to some statements, they were horsing around, and the firearm came out again, and that's when Michael was killed.
These men need to be held accountable for what they did, for their actions, for their lack of courage, for their lack of honor.
NCIS is not providing any details. A spokesperson reported this week the investigation is still open.
The good news on this is that this long wait has not been in vain.
A spokesperson for the Marines said they are not giving out the names or the ranks of those who may have been involved or what punishment they could face if they're convicted. Jennifer Kastner, ABC 10 News.
4 crewmen are in the hospital after a possible overdose aboard a fishing boat. Narcotics agents say that the crewmen were found unconscious on the Shogun charter fishing boat this morning at Fisherman's Landing. First responders administered Narcan to the victims, which helps counteract opioids. Investigators say that they suspect that fentanyl is to blame, but they're still looking into exactly what drugs were taken.
So if there is any fentanyl on board the vessel, the entire vessel will have to be swept, cleaned by the hazardous materials team to make sure that there's none on board, because it's very lethal in very small quantities.
The anonymous 911 call came in around 9 o'clock this morning. The boat was set to depart with a new group of 28 passengers just an hour later. No charges have been filed at this time. We reached out to the Shogun Charter Company, but they declined to comment about this. Fire crews also knocked down a small brush fire off the I-8 freeway in El Cajon this afternoon. This was off the eastbound lane just west of Johnson Avenue. Trolleys in the area, they were briefly stopped so that the fire hoses could be pulled over the tracks. There was also an issue of smoke blocking view of the tracks for trolley operators. That fire slowed traffic on the freeway and nearby surface streets. No word on the cause and no injuries were reported.
President Trump booed while paying respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It comes as the president is pushing to replace Ginsburg on the court before the election. And as ABC's Elizabeth Schulze reports, the president isn't promising to leave office peacefully if he loses.
President Trump paying his respects to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg today at the Supreme Court, where he was greeted by boos and chants of "Vote him out." The president facing backlash over comments he made last night, refusing twice to say if he will commit to a peaceful transition of power.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots.
Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transfer of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
President Trump declining to answer the question directly again today.
Are the election results only legitimate if you win? So we have to be very careful with the ballots. The ballots, that's a whole big scam.
Democrats now accusing the president of disrespecting a basic principle of American democracy.
He's trying to have the Constitution of the United States swallow Clorox.
But Republicans stopping short of criticizing the president directly for his remarks, instead affirming the idea of a peaceful transition of power. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tweeting, "The winner of the November 3rd election will be inaugurated on January 20th. With voting already underway in some states, President Trump also casting doubt on the results of the election, pointing without evidence to widespread fraud from mail-in voting, even though he urged voters in Florida to vote by mail on Twitter today. Trump saying he will announce his nominee for the court Saturday and urging a swift confirmation process in case the Supreme Court has to determine the election's outcome.
I think this will end up in the Supreme Court. I think it's very important to have a ninth justice.
People are continuing to line up here at the Supreme Court to pay their respects to Justice Ginsburg. Tomorrow, she will be the first woman to lie in state at the Capitol just across the street. Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, the Supreme Court.
A Trump healthcare appointee who made headlines for conspiracy accusations has been diagnosed with cancer. A spokesperson says Michael Caputo has metastatic cancer of the head and neck. Caputo went on a leave of absence last week after streaming a Facebook Live rant on a conspiracy in which lawmakers, the media, and, quote, deep state scientists are keeping Americans sick with COVID-19. Caputo also faces scrutiny over reports that he tried to gain editorial control over a scientific weekly published by the CDC.